Hello, beep boop. I have not been hitting videos nearly as regular as intended, partially because during the summer I am mostly in an echo chamber. There's my wife and there's my friends that I know online and stuff like that. But part of the reason that I am able to impart wisdom during the school year is because my students let me know some of the ridiculous things that they believe in. And many of those things are they haven't fully thought out, or they don't realize the repercussions, or they don't understand how incredibly, amazingly misguided those ideas are. So, without the regular infusions of those things, and honestly, I could just kind of go through some of their old assignments, and that would remind me of, oh yeah, they believe this horribly racist thing, not knowing that it's horribly racist, or horribly sexist thing, not knowing that they're incredibly sexist, or oh yeah, they said something really transphobic, not knowing that some people in their class are trans. What the hell? So, here's one thing that I have been recently reminded of because of the Area 51 ridiculousness. I have a couple of kids who use names as substitutes for the kind of people that someone is. Karens or Chads and this language comes from a group of very frustrated, very sad, and to the point of bitterness, angry people called incels or involuntary celibates. And here is the lesson of today. The lesson of today is that no matter how ironically you choose to use the language of an organization, you are still propagating and still advertising that organization. So even if you're not a white nationalist, even if you don't believe that all immigrants are bad and rapists and horrible, and even if you don't believe that all women are man haters, if you're using terms or pictures or memes or Pepe the Frog or the word feminazi or whatever, even if you have a much more nuanced view of the individuals being spoken about, if you're using racial slurs, if you're using generalizations about groups of people, realizing in your heart of hearts, oh, I'm not racist, or I'm not sexist, or some of my best friends are blank, that you are still supporting that ideology. You're still allowing people in your lives to believe that you are. And there comes a certain point where when you pretend something for so long, even if it's entirely ironic, eventually everybody's just going to think you're that. Lots of the alt-right spokespeople started out pretending that they were just fooling around and they were trolls and they were doing it for the lulls. But they're now figureheads of the organization. Some of them are leaders. Some of them started out pretending to not believe these things, but the longer they surrounded with those kind of people and the longer they were with those kind of people and the longer that they just did the things that they were doing, and at least initially as a joke, the more inclined they were to actually believe that brown people were dumber than white people, or they were more likely to believe that all women are intentionally manipulating them for sex, or they believe that migrants are more likely to commit crime. Even though science statistically has proven multiple times that that isn't true. So most of the ignorance that I deal with right now is on my mom's Facebook. And it's because she has lots of old people as her Facebook friends. So there's a lot of old people that believe really stupid things in America. And so if I were to come here and discuss those things, you would immediately be able to go, oh, well, this doesn't apply to me. I'm not that dumb. But there are people that dumb. And it's really easy to believe that every person who says they're taking our gerbs is joking. It's really easy to believe that all those guys who says, well, if I pay for dinner, then, I should get sex. It's easy to think that they're kidding when you haven't experienced that level of desperation. But it exists in the world. And even though there is a great deal of ignorance here, it's just, you can't assume that that's true everywhere. And just because you haven't seen anyone personally be abused doesn't mean that there's no one being abused. Similarly, and I have quite a few of my intellectual friends believe a certain thing, they believe that since all the people that they argue with about racism or sexism or the power of gender or whatever are arguing with are white, straight, and monogendered people, or cisgendered people, sorry, that's what I was looking for. Oops, not monogendered. Cisgendered people. They believe that these are fights taken up for the purpose of defending these other people and are actually, in and of themselves, kind of racist, sexist, homophobic, etc. Because how could you know? I'm only fighting other white people. Clearly, black people don't care about this stuff. And there are lots of people who believe that. But those people also don't have that many friends who are of a different race, of a different gender, of a different sexuality, etc. So don't assume that your experience is the only experience. I know that's really hard to do. It's really, really hard to say there might be places in the world where things are not like I think they are. Or I've never had anybody do this, so clearly it doesn't happen. It's really, really hard to say there might be things out there that I don't know. It's very, very difficult to get your mind around. And that's why it's good to get out to other parts of the world. Another thing that specifically affects my Swedish kids is a lot of them have been to other countries, but they've only been to like the resort area of other countries. So they really only know about the kind of poor people that are at the resort places in those other countries. And the dramatic differences between those resort areas and what's presented and the reality of those places. So I know that these words upset people, but acknowledge your privilege. Realize that sometimes the world you've experienced is not the world that everyone else has. It's one of those things that if you're going to grow as a person, you have to realize that at this point in your life, you have advantages that lots of other people don't get. There have been lots of things you've been given that other people don't have, or that they have had to work desperately for and you just had handed to you. So, acknowledge your privilege, try to be better, and if you are of an oppressed minority, which you may well be, honestly, lots of children are. Lots of children are looked down on by adults and not given any responsibility and not trusted. Then realize that you being held down is everybody being held down. The same rights that we want to give other races are the same rights we want to give other genders, are the same rights we want to give other sexualities, are the same rights we want to give other creeds. Everybody should have the same rights. And when the old, rich, cis, white males turn feminists against black people, or turn black people against gay people, or turn gay people against trans people, or whatever, the rich people are winning. Those rich old white men are winning when they turn us against each other. We all need to have the fight, and we need to be having each other's backs because we're all fighting the same people. And when they turn us against each other, that's them winning. Just like with terrorists. Ironic, isn't it? Beep boop. Hope you're all well. For those of you still counting, I am on week 5 of the gym, week 4 of SFE. I can understand Swedish much better, but I still can't speak it worth a darn. I have a much better vocabulary, and it's mostly, I can read almost everything. Like, I was able to read all the subtitles in The Lion King the other day. So that was nice. I hope you guys are well. Bye. Beep boop.